Intelligence agencies rate cyber espionage among the top threats to national security. And the usual suspect is China, which has an army of 180,000 cyber spies, according to the FBI. Concerns in Canberra over their activities have caused the government to blacklist the Chinese technology giant Huawei to stop it taking part in the National Broadband Network. The move has sparked furious denials from the company's Australian directors, who include former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer. Heather Hewish reports.
3, 2, 1, hit it.
The government's ambitious $36 billion National Broadband Network, unveiled with great fanfare, meant big business for companies keen to get a slice of the action. One of them was the Chinese technology giant Huawei, which put in a bid to supply equipment.
Our credentials are second to none in this area.
The second largest telecommunications company in the world was effectively banned from the NBN and linked to cyber attacks by the Chinese government with no evidence offered.
The Australian government is actually doing what many of us would hope it would, which is standing up and saying that security is one of the key considerations that you have to build in at the foundation level of the National Broadband Network.
The key question for the government on this is whether or not the security risks which may well flow from hiring a Chinese company to build the broadband network are so great that they justify the costs that will flow from this kind of very pointed and deliberate exclusion of them.
This is a story that's viewed as a test case for Australia's trade relationship with China, one that's created frictions between government departments. A story that involves intelligence warnings from our own agencies, along with advice from the United States, based on a belief that cyber hacking by the Chinese government is on the increase. Huawei was considered a security threat, and those on its Australian board, former Victorian Labor Premier John Brumby, along with the former Foreign Affairs Minister Alexander Downer, were powerless to do much about it.
This sort of whole concept of Huawei being involved in cyber warfare, presumably that would just be based on the fact that the company comes from China and everybody in China is who's involved with information technology is involved in cyber warfare. This is just completely absurd.
Matters came to a head here at the Attorney General's Department in Canberra just before Christmas, when Huawei's Australian chairman, retired Rear Admiral General John Lord, was told by the department's Deputy Secretary not to bother applying for any NBN supply contracts because they'd fail. The company was stunned. Isn't the game all over for you?
Look, can I address security and our company? I mean, we are and have been delivering the NBN equivalent in the United Kingdom for the last 6 years with absolute no problems.
But that calling card was no match for security warnings about Huawei from ASIO, Australia's top intelligence body, to the Cabinet's Security Subcommittee last year. One of the first tasks of the new Attorney-General, Nicola Roxon, when she was sworn in before Christmas, was to act on the subcommittee's decision. 730 understands advice from the US government and intelligence agencies was also a key factor.
We see you as one of our closest allies, and so it certainly stands to reason that our intelligence agencies and our most senior officials have been engaging with yours for quite some time, especially on issues such as this.
Now questions are being asked in diplomatic and trade circles about Washington's motives.
It is true that the United States is getting worried about how close Australia is getting to China. It wouldn't be, to me, very surprising if that anxiety had been reflected in the United States, perhaps encouraging Australia not to allow China to bid into this very important national project.
Is this something that might have come up in conversations during President Obama's visit here last year?
I wouldn't be at all surprised if this was one of the things that might not have been on President Obama's or his party's talking points when they came.
Thank you very much.
Whatever happened, it was after President Obama's visit that Huawei officials and consultants on its payroll noted a marked shift in what they felt had been positive relations with NBN Co and the government. Some were hauled before ASIO and related departments and told to get a message to China that Australia would not tolerate increased cyber hacking of ministerial offices and departments, which has been going on for years.
As China grows, as it becomes richer, it becomes more technically capable, and of course as it becomes more strategically ambitious, it's going to be doing more of this kind of thing. I don't think we should be surprised by that. That's not to say we shouldn't try and guard against it, but we shouldn't fall down in a dead faint that they're doing what we've always done.
Huawei stood accused of giving the Chinese government a helping hand, or at least being vulnerable to pressure.
Huawei itself as a company, I'm sure, isn't actively involved in passing information. But would the Chinese government ask Huawei how to break its technologies? Would the Chinese government ask its engineers that live in China to come over to the security headquarters and talk about how to break its technology? I suspect that would be the case. In fact, I would be really surprised if that wasn't common practice.
This is complete nonsense. First of all, for Huawei, it derives over 60% of all of its revenue from outside of China. So if it was seen to be a vehicle for cyber warfare, well then, of course, it would lose all of that business. It would lose it overnight and it would destroy the company. So the company can't afford to be involved in those sorts of activities.
Can I say that in all the countries that we operate in, 140 of them, there's only one country that we continually get raised a security question, and that is the United States.
Huawei has been frozen out of contracts in the US amid concerns that its chief executive was a member of the People's Liberation Army, and that until recently the company was doing big business with Iran.
Huawei, up until very late 2011, had a massive operation in Iran and was reported to have helped the Iranian regime track and geospatially locate Iranians during the demonstrations of 2009, which, as we all know, the Iranian regime eventually killed many of the opponents.
It is totally false, and we deny that totally. We are in Iran, we don't hide that, as is many of our competitors. But what we're offering is non-military services.
As Huawei insists it's a private company, the message is having no impact on the US or Australian governments. Through all of this, you can be sure the Chinese government is watching closely, especially for any signals coming from the new Foreign Affairs Minister, Bob Carr.